You think you know Miley Cyrus? Think again, because for 4 long years she bit her tongue, swallowed the truth, watched the headlines twist her name, watched fans and foes alike call her a rebel, a wreck, a woman undone by fame and fire. But now, with one haunting, earth-shaking release, she's unleashed a hurricane of truth, emotion, and defiance aimed directly at the man who once held her hand beneath Malibu sunsets, only to betray her under Hollywood spotlights, Liam Hemsworth. And this time, she's not pulling punches or whispering behind metaphors. She's roaring in full throttle through lyrics, visuals, and silent symbolism that slice deeper than any courtroom testimony, because Flowers is not just a breakup song. It's a grave marker, a resurrection anthem, a phoenix's scream from the ashes of a marriage built on secrets, silences, and scandal, a marriage now reduced to whispers and war cries across the internet, tabloids, and Spotify streams. And when Miley stepped into the studio to pen those lyrics, she wasn't just writing a melody. She was lighting a fuse, confronting the ghost of a man who, while publicly smiling beside her on red carpets, may have privately stepped out on her with none other than Jennifer Lawrence, yes, Katniss herself. The rumors now swirling with renewed fury as fans dissect frame by frame the music video where Miley dances in a golden gown eerily identical to Jennifer's infamous premiere dress, a shade of gold once worn for glamour, now weaponized for justice, revenge, and poetic closure. She was just Miley, an artist, a survivor, a woman who had outlived the caricature the media tried to force upon her, and that quiet power, that grounded confidence, radiated through every appearance post, Flowers. From her Vogue cover shoot, where she looked like a 1970s goddess channeling rebirth, to her stripped-down performances where she replaced shock with soul, and even her interviews changed. Not defensive, not apologetic, but introspective, wise, textured. And when she spoke about the past now, it wasn't from pain. It was from perspective, like someone who had finally made peace with the fire that once consumed her, because she now saw it as the crucible that shaped her. And that's what made her return not just iconic but sacred. Because for the fans who grew up with her, who watched her swing on wrecking balls and get crucified by the press for twerking, this era was redemption incarnate. A woman once mocked for burning down the past, now celebrated for rising from it. And what people didn't realize was that Flowers wasn't just a response to Liam. It was a love letter to herself, to the girl who stayed in a marriage long after it stopped serving her, to the young woman who was made to believe that rebellion was a flaw, to the daughter who watched her home burn and still found the courage to build again. And in the silence between the lyrics, you could hear it. The years of gaslighting, the therapy sessions, the breakdowns hidden behind award show smiles, the courage it took to walk away from someone you still loved but who no longer saw you clearly. And maybe that's why this moment felt so different. Not because Miley had changed overnight, but because she had finally stopped performing the version of herself that made others comfortable and instead let her truth speak, unedited, unapologetic. And as the months rolled on and the song continued to dominate global charts, she didn't gloat, didn't spiral, didn't self-sabotage like the media expected. She simply kept showing up stronger, softer, sharper, and with every appearance. It became clearer that this wasn't a phase. It was a metamorphosis, the result of a woman who had finally faced every demon, mourned every illusion, and chosen herself anyway. And while fans kept digging for Liam's reaction, kept waiting for Jennifer to comment, it no longer mattered, because Miley had closed that chapter without their permission, had turned pain into a product so emotionally potent that no one else's silence could undo it. And what began as a song became a global symbol, now sung by divorcees and teenagers alike. A universal anthem about choosing oneself even when the world says you're unlovable. And in private, sources say Miley's inner circle shifted too. Less chaos, more clarity, fewer yes men, more healers. And yes, there were tears, breakdowns, and days where the scars still stung, but unlike before, she no longer faced them alone. And that's the power of narrative ownership. Once you tell your truth, fully and loudly, no one can weaponize your silence again. And while the world still debates whether Flowers was the final nail in Liam's public image, or just another pop song, Miley doesn't care anymore because her legacy isn't tied to a last name, a scandal, or a marriage. It's now built on survival, on self-love, on the ability to rise not just despite betrayal, but because of it. And this, ultimately, is her greatest revenge. Not the success, not the fame, not the flawless drag of a golden dress, but the quiet knowing that she took the most humiliating, heartbreaking chapter of her life and turned it into the greatest artistic triumph of her career, and in doing so, became something far more enduring than a pop star or a tabloid icon. She became a mirror, reflecting back the unspoken wounds of millions who watched her fall and rise and fall again, and who now, because of her, believe wildfire that fans ignited and refused to let extinguish, the part where the story stopped being just about Miley Cyrus, Liam Hemsworth and Jennifer Lawrence, and instead became a cultural autopsy on fame, loyalty, and the digital battleground of modern-day breakups. Because the moment Flowers dropped, it didn't land like a regular release. It detonated like a truth bomb across a landscape already drenched in gasoline. And what followed wasn't just applause or praise, it was obsession. A viral unraveling of truth through reels and remixes. An army of fans-turned-detectives who picked apart every frame, every outfit, every lyric with forensic intensity. Not for entertainment, but for justice, for vindication, for all the years Miley was ridiculed while Liam was canonized as the soft-spoken gentleman. And suddenly, TikTok became the courtroom, Twitter the battleground, Instagram the evidence board, and the fans